Yo, what's up? Blessings. Got Yoga Mac here. I want to read a little bit from this book. I was watching, I think, a podcast from the Essentia Foundation yesterday. This man named Tom Cheetham was talking, and he gave probably more references than I've ever heard in a podcast, which is something that I love, right? People that are just backing it up like that because they can string it together. This guy seemed to be a specialist in a lot of things, but he was an expert in footnotes, and knowing who wrote footnotes, um, that's pretty tedious. So I hope everybody's doing well. I thought this was really interesting what he was talking about with imagination and some of the people that he basically wrote books about. Corbin, this guy Henry Corbin and James Hillman. So what I did was hop into ChatGPT and I asked it what all it knew about Tom Cheetham and what Tom Cheetham was known for. And I read that and I asked it about his books, which it left, I think, a couple out. Maybe, one or two. And I asked it about Henry Corbin. Really interesting stuff. French philosopher, theologian, and Irenologist, known for his profound influence on the study of Islamic mysticism, particularly through his work on Persian Sufism and the philosophical tradition of Iran. He is most renowned for introducing the Western world to the spiritual and philosophical dimensions of Islamic thought. And check out some of these things. I mean, I can see why Tom Cheetham got so interested in it and felt so inspired by it. Imagination and the imaginal world, this mundus imaginalis, an intermediary realm between the physical and purely spiritual. This realm is accessed through the active imagination and is seen as real as the material world, though not in the same way. It is the place where spiritual and metaphysical truths can manifest in symbolic forms. He believed this realm was crucial for understanding religious experiences and spiritual visions. In this sense, imagination is not just fantasy, but a vital faculty for perceiving higher realities. It is the connection point. Hermeneutics of the soul. Corbin emphasized the importance of spiritual hermeneutics, an interpretive method that seeks deeper, often hidden meanings within religious texts. For Corbin, these texts contain multiple layers of significance, and the true spiritual meanings are accessible only through inner esoteric knowledge and insight. Now, angelology. Isn't that cool? Angelology. I'm an angelologist. I have a PhD in angelology. Excuse me, what is that? It's the study of angels. Particularly, well, I mean, it makes sense if there's demonology, right? So there's demonology, there's angelology. I just haven't really heard it said like that, so that's pretty cool. I find that pretty interesting. I'm a ufologist, like UFOs, demonology, angelology, paranormal activity, paranormal activity. I don't know, it seems kind of related. They might be talking about the same thing. This concept is intertwined with his views of the imaginal world. where angels are seen as inhabitants and guides. He saw angels as mediators between God and humanity, and each individual has a celestial counterpart or angelic twin that guides them towards spiritual realization. What do you think? You think you have a angelic twin counterpart that guides you towards spiritual realization? You think some people call this God? Is it just their imagination? It's like, what is belief? The placebo effect. Theology of the heart. Corbin proposed a theology of the heart, emphasizing the heart as the organ of spiritual perception and understanding. This contrasts with a purely rationalistic or intellectual approach to theology. He drew heavily on the works of Islamic mystics like Ibn Arabi and Surawardi, who emphasized the heart's central role in experiencing the divine truths. Now, I'm pretty deep into Dan Winter, so I know a good bit about the vibration of the heart and the elo-fi frequency. But this was the first time I've heard of it put in this way. And it feels like this is where Dan Winter, or through his studies, he came across this guy, and it actually was a thread that seemed coherent across multiple fields. Since Dan Winter went to a school in Detroit to learn higher education, and since it was a Jesuit school, they were able to bring in a lot of different fields of knowledge in order to find solutions to the nature of the universe. And Dan Winter was also a protege of Buckminster Fuller. So, and the list goes on and on. So that guy was pretty dense because he explains the nature of consciousness and the soul inhabiting the body with physics through, electricity and magnetism. But he has a lot to say about what the heart and the vibration of the heart and its connection, or its way of allowing everything to agree to at least work together in order to exchange energy interoperably and equally, which is Walter Russell. So I'm somewhat fascinated by Tom Cheetham, Henry Corbin, and Hillman, which I've heard of Hillman. I just haven't really read any of his work. I'd say top 5 lately, because there are hundreds, but the top 5 lately that I've been sort of stuck on: Dan Winter, Bernardo Castro, John Vervaeke. Those are really the top 3, and then I do like Rupert Sheldrake, Ian McGilchrist. But that's just in like the philosophy realm. That doesn't really get into theosophy or mysticism that much. It's more just a little, it's science and then blending some metaphysics and philosophy. Tom Cheetham really breaks it open to this other sector of imagination, which I don't think it's that hard to explain if people, it's kind of like a truth. It's kind of like you have to accept the truth of this being your imagination. You don't really have to believe it. You just accept that this is what the imagination is, and then you don't even explore it. You allow it to explore the connections that it's creating, that are being created through it. So we're very lucky, you know. Now, is imagination connected to other things? So let's just move on. Critique of modernity, Corbin critique modernity. Okay, let's move on. Influences and legacy. So then there's this guy, James Hillman. And I'm just asking the AI, you know, I do have, I'll do other videos and stuff. I'm just starting this off, so I'm sorry if this is, you know, not very well coordinated, but I do want to, I felt sort of inspired, and
here's what I found.
Echo, continue. Sorry, I heard me say something. Echo, pull up focus music.
Here's what I found.
Hold on one second. That's fine. So there's Hillman, who pioneered archetypal psychology. Now, we all know Jung was big into archetypes, but Hillman founded archetypal psychology, which emphasizes the importance of archetypes. Okay, primordial images, universal primordial images, and themes that recur across cultures and time, in understanding the human psyche. He saw these archetypes as foundational in human experience and psychological development. All right, this approach shifts the focus from personal pathology to a broader mythic dimensions of life. It seeks to explore the deeper meanings and patterns in psychological phenomena rather than merely addressing symptoms. And then Hillman rejected the medicalization of psychology and the tendency to pathologize human experiences. He argued against the diagnostic and treatment-oriented approach prevalent in mainstream psychology. Instead, he promoted a more holistic understanding of psychological issues, viewing them as expressions of the soul's complexities and mysteries rather than mere dysfunctions to be fixed. Polytheistic psychology, influenced by Jungian ideas, Hillman expanded on the notion of the multiplicity of the psyche. He proposed that the psyche is inherently multiple, inhabited by various gods or archetypal figures, each representing different aspects of the human experience. The polytheistic perspective emphasizes the diversity of psychological experiences and the need to honor and integrate these different aspects rather than striving for a singular unified self. The Soul's Code, one of Hillman's most influential books, The Soul's Code, In Search of Character and Calling, presents the idea that each individual has a unique destiny or calling encoded within their soul. He referred to this as the acorn theory, suggesting that just as an acorn contains the blueprint for an oak tree, each person carries the potential for their unique path in life. This perspective encourages individuals to look within to discover their true nature and purpose rather than conforming to external expectations and societal norms. Myth and imagination. Hillman emphasized the importance of myth and imagination in understanding the human condition. He believed that myths provide profound insights into the human psyche, and that engaging with these stories can lead to self-awareness and psychological growth. He advocated for a mythic approach to therapy where clients explore their personal narratives and life stories as mythic tales, finding deeper meaning and transformation through this process. Life is a story. Your life is a book. You are the author of your reality. That is Scott Adams. Can you author your own reality? All right? Doesn't it feel like it? That's why it feels like the Truman Show sometimes. That's why you might want to just do crazy creative stuff. It just pops in your mind. You're like, man, I got to go to work. Freedom. We need freedom. We need freedom to express and create and just be. Right? So we've got it. It's not that we have to find it. It's more like we need to remember it. Okay? Remember how free we are. Critique of Modernity. Okay. So I went over their books. So let's read a book. I'm going to read a little bit out of this book right here. Hold on. Because it just so happened I picked it up today while I was thinking about something. Picked it up. Just open it up randomly, and I'll tell you. Sorry. So the book is something I picked up at a book fair. Give you a little tidbit. I like to wait to the end of the day at the book fairs. I like to wait to the last day a lot of the times because I'm not there in any rush to get any particular book. I know some people might want to get there early to get the good books. I want to get what is left over, what other people, I go to the philosophy, science, I go to, the metaphysical and mystic section and stuff. And I just kind of look at what other people aren't interested in. And then you find some gems there where it's almost like they were waiting for you. Okay? And there's a reason why nobody else got them, because they weren't for them, they were for you. So this one happened to be one of those. It's not a very appealing book. When you see it, you just see this and you pick it up and you see that. So people might read a book by its cover. Obviously, this is a little bit in the woo-woo section. So there aren't any symbols or hieroglyphics or archetypes or anything like this. It's just kind of plain. So, but if you read it, it goes Ruth Montgomery. All right. The World Before. So it's written by her. And it says a remarkable account dictated from the other side by world famous medium Arthur Ford and the spirit guides of creation and life on the lost continents of Mu and Atlantis. So I just so happened to pick it up this morning while I was thinking about something. And if we have time, I'll tell you what I was thinking about, but I don't think we'll have time. My imagination sort of went off when I sort of let go. I really wasn't thinking about anything. I was just kind of randomly doing stuff. I just got done eating some breakfast, having some coffee, and then something popped in my head. Um, so I opened it up randomly. I just picked it up, opened. I got books everywhere. Sometimes I just do that. I'll just open it up, see where I'm at. Chapter 4, Descent from the Angels. So the other place I could have opened it up at, because I can tell the gaps in here, would be in the middle, like on 17 here, Chapter 3, Chapter 4, Chapter 6, and Chapter 8, and then that's about it. So if you were just going to open this book because people left it, and it's gapped up, if you're trying to go, it's not speaking to you, it was already going to open there. Okay, well, it's still got a handful of other things that it could have opened to. So it opened to Chapter 4, Descent from the Angels. Civilization on Mother Earth has never again equaled the towering heights achieved in those golden years on Lemuria and Atlantis. Most of the people were high-minded, and due to their industrious bent, the land was covered with luxuriant vegetation. But not all was idyllic. Thanks to the succulence created through man's endeavors, some species were reproducing even more rapidly than the human race. Giant birds and mammals attacked the crops. Enormous lizards crawled out of the sea to stalk the land, and the dinosaurs, with their gigantic bodies and tiny brains, struck with such ferocity that people began banding together in tightly guarded communities. On Mu, the danger was so great that Lemurians had to dig shelters beneath the earth or in large caves in the hillsides to escape the predatory beasts. The guides give a graphic description of this lamentable era, writing, "In the land of Lemuria were giant dinosaurs who roamed the plains and struck down forests in their wake, destroying crops and uprooting orchards that had been tenderly nurtured for food and shade. They trampled on all within range. One toe could crush a small child, and fought mighty battles among themselves over such tasty morsels as man and smaller beasts." For some reason, I had been under the impression that dinosaurs were herbivores. Always eager to catch my mysterious informants in a misstatement of fact, I therefore checked the Encyclopedia Britannica and read that indeed many kinds of dinosaurs were flesh-eating. Unperturbed by my impolite doubts, the guides continued. Their great tails lashed through brush and stream, bent only on seeking food and shelter from mighty storms that occasionally swept the burgeoning earth. Since Edward Casey had also spoken of the contest between early man and giant animals, I asked for an illustration of conditions at that time, and the guides wrote, "Let us consider the life of one family on Lemuria. They lived in a cave sheltered from wild animals, and all that the women were able to see were shadows cast by those who passed the open entrance. Thus it was a shadow world, And although some retained memories of their life in spirit, others, having heard such stories, thought that the shadows were spirits of otherworld entities and conversely freely with them, not realizing that the physical body casting the shadow stood between them and the daylight at their back. Women and children seldom ventured forth from the entrance, due to the fear of animals too big for today's comprehension. The men emerged only to seek game, for this was principally a meat-eating time after the herbs growing in the immediate vicinity of the caves and mounds had been uprooted. These were the days of cave dwellers, and many were the art forms expressed on cavern walls during the tedious days when there was little to occupy the men and women. Walls were blackened by the fire from cookery. Thus many of these artistic creations drawn near the surface were lost, although some, carved more deeply, made a lasting imprint. A family called Endymius dwelt with others in a somewhat larger cave than most, which offered more social contact. Children born where seldom saw that light of day, and children born there seldom saw the light of day and ended their lifespan within the confines of the cave, although occasionally, when hunters reported no sight of huge beasts, they did venture forth, blinking painfully in the brilliant sunshine and staring for miles across the open plains. These families intermarried in brief ceremonies performed by the priestly caste, composed of those who could recall spirit life. One of these holy men or women would ask the young couple to join hands while all chanted in unison the blessings of the clan. All shared in the cooking after men had captured a hare, otter, small game, or occasional buffalo. They ate, they slept, they propagated, they talked, and this was the mole-like existence of these hapless Lemurians. Thus, man knew descent. Thus, man knew descent from the angels, and until some of the hardy ones began feeble efforts to eradicate the fearsome beasts, there seemed little hope for mankind. Sorry, I'll get better at reading, but I thought that's pretty cool. So I'll have to start over and just read this book from the beginning. It says that it was published in 1976. And here's the table of contents. So that's pretty cool. Ruth Montgomery is one of the country's most respected and widely read authors, whose A World Beyond was hailed by the critics as dramatic evidence of continuing life on the other side of the door called death. Mrs. Montgomery's previous books included A Gift of Prophecy, The Phenomenal Jean Dixon, A Search for the Truth, Here and Hereafter, Born to Heal, and Companions Along the Way have established her as an unparalleled authority in the psychic field. So I'm probably going to come on here and read more books and, use the AI a little bit more to get things started. and I'll do some AI tutorials for you guys. All right. Blessings. Yoga Mac out.